You agree with me that some of these images up here kind of neatly represent the idea of hydration. I guess that's the key point we're trying to make with these images. Drinking, water, fluids, post-exercise maybe. This is all sort of hydration stuff, right? But what would you say if I said that this image here also represented hydration? Would you immediately grasp that as a concept? Let's see if we can get to the nitty-gritty of why all of those images, including this sort of blood and circulation one, also have an implication on this hydration thing. But before we do, let's define. It's good to define early. Let's do it. So we're going to say that hydration is the thing we have as our title today is having enough water. Nothing surprising there. Having enough water to enable normal functioning. To enable, let me see if I can squeeze that in. Normal functioning to enable. There's an R in there. Normal functioning. Enable normal functioning of what? Well, not surprisingly, of the body. Lovely. So we've got enabling of the normal functioning of the body. That's what we mean by hydration. Good stuff. But I also want to introduce to you the notion of water balance. Okay, so water balance. And water balance is a pretty obvious concept, and I want you to make sure that you can kind of understand as well as define this. But water balance is hydration prevents, guess what? Hydration prevents dehydration. And I guess that's the whole point. We're looking at, especially for us, from a performance perspective, how do we use hydration strategies, drinking for want of a better description, to prevent dehydration? And to understand that, we need to understand dehydration itself. So I'm going to put down here the notion of dehydration. What is it? What problems does it cause? And why, first of all, is it so useful to avoid from a performance perspective? And why do we link it to kind of this blood and circulation stuff? So let's see if we can go through that. Well, the first point, guess what? It's immediately about the blood. First point is that dehydration, in other words, we don't have enough water to enable normal functioning. Well, guess what? Dehydration increases, up arrow that is, increases blood viscosity. Maybe I should have written this in red. Blood viscosity. Now, focus please on the word viscosity. What do we mean by that? It's a word you may or may not have come across before. You touched on it numerous times in your GCSE biology courses. It means the thickness or stickiness. That's what we're talking about. It's that sort of partialness between being a fluid and moving towards being a solid. If it's more viscous, it's less liquid. Okay, therefore, if we increase blood viscosity through dehydration, that of course is going to require a response. Now, you might want to think about, well, why does the blood become more viscous, more thick? Well, of course, if you reflect on the composition of blood and plasma, or the vast majority of plasma is water. The less water there is in the body, dehydration, the less plasma there is in the blood. So that's what we're talking about there. As a result of this, and it is a direct impact, by the way, we get an increase, an up arrow in heart rate, or we could say this is an alternative, heart works harder. Okay, so think through that a second. The blood is stickier, thicker, so heart works harder. And it can even, guys, lead to irregularity of the heart. I was going to write irregularly. There we go, regularly. I should just put a regular heart rate. You see what I'm trying to say there. Now, let's make our next point. Dehydration also causes an increase, that's an up arrow, in body temperature. Okay, so I'm just going to put in body temp. Okay, increase in body temperature. We get hotter. That has performance implications as well. Again, you guys in your biology will be studying the relationship between higher temperatures and enzyme activity. Enzymes being involved in both anaerobic and aerobic respiration. You know at higher temperatures that enzymes become denatured. I'm not going to get into it here, and they stop functioning effectively. You guys know this from your other studies, and that is therefore a negative aspect of or negative performance implication. Let's go over here. I'm also want to talk about almost like the psychological processes. We get slowing reactions, okay? So the performer, the games player, the gymnast, whatever it is, their reactions start to slow. We can also describe this as a loss of concentration, okay? So we would anticipate that someone who's experiencing dehydration may well lose concentration. Therefore, they might make poor decisions. So start to think Maybe we could think about a hockey player, for argument's sake. Start to think when in a performance this might be more likely. And if you're answering well towards the end of performance, you would be right, because of course we're tending to be more likely to be dehydrated by that point. And finally, performers may experience muscle cramps. Okay, muscle cramp. And I'm also going to put in the word here, muscle cramp or fatigue. I'm not saying they're the same thing, but these are both possible. Cramping is caused by a lack of electrolytes. These are minerals, mineral ions actually, which are crucial to the electrical stimulation of muscles. If we lose water, we cannot conduct those as effectively to where they're needed to be. Therefore, we're more likely to cramp and we're more likely to experience muscle fatigue. So quick summary there, that's what happens with dehydration. Therefore, we hydrate to prevent dehydration, and we know that dehydration is having enough water to enable functioning of the body. The only points I would add in here for you is think about the types of drinks. We know that water is really important. Great, big tick. But also think about drinks like isotonics. Okay, isotonics, you guys should be really knowledgeable. I'm not going to get into it here, but you guys should be really knowledgeable about osmosis and osmotic conditions from your biology. You might want to go back to your biology and think about, well, why would isotonics and even hypertonics be taken by performers during exercise? Now, it's kind of off the remit of this particular course I'm teaching for today, but those are questions you might want to go and have a look at. And finally, guys, think about when you would take fluids. And I mean, always is a good answer, but we want to be taking, in terms of performance, we want to be taking on fluids before, during, and after performance. The during part, I guess it does depend on what we're doing. We're not going to take fluids on during, say, a 100-meter sprint, but if it's a little bit longer or there's some kind of ongoing performance nature to what we're doing, before performance, during performance, and after. Why? Because we want the water balance to prevent this dehydration, which causes all this bad stuff. Thanks.